In this tutorial, we're going to be building our very own token-gated Web3 application, and we're going to be using thirdweb's Connect SDK to do this. So this is my demo here. You can see this is my token-gated app. We have a Connect wallet button here, so a Connect button. When we click on it, we have all the different ways we can connect here. I'm just going to use a MetaMask wallet. And you can see here, this is going to have us sign a message. This is the message that we are signing to prove and authenticate ourselves, and this is using ERC-721 or the sign in with Ethereum, and we'll go over that later on in this video. But we'll sign here, we'll get a pop-up message here. So this is the signature request, and we just need to sign that. And what that'll do is authenticate us as the user. You can see we are now logged in. We can go to the gated page. So this is an example here where this wallet already has ownership of the NFT that we're checking in order to gain access to this page. So you can see you have access to view this page here. But if I sign out, so you can see here, we're not logged in. So we have to go back to the login. Let me switch my wallet here to a wallet that does not have the NFT required. So if I connect my wallet again, we'll use MetaMask. We're going to sign our message. We get the pop-up here. We'll sign the message. We are logged in. So let's try to go to our gated page here. The gated page says now I do not own the NFT. So I can either go back to the login page or I can then claim the NFT. So we can go to claim the NFT here. This is our NFT claim page. You can see this is the wallet I have here, and this is a button here to claim the NFT. So we'll click that to claim the NFT that is required to gain access to our gated page. We'll hit confirm. There we go, NFT was claimed. So now that I have the NFT, if I go back to the gated page, I should now have access to view this page because now the wallet has the NFT. Again, I can disconnect. If I go back to login, we'll connect one more time from the beginning with the same wallet that we just claimed with. I'll just sign this message here. And we'll go to a gated page, and there you go. We now have access to this page. So this is, again, what we're going to be building. It's a token-gated Web3 application using thirdweb's Auth, and we'll be building this in today's tutorial. Hey everyone, Sean Watasa here, back with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be building our very own token-gated Web3 application. We're going to be utilizing thirdweb's Connect SDK and using Auth in order to token gate a specific page and make requirements like owning an NFT in order to view the page. So an overview of what we'll be covering in this video, we'll first go over what thirdweb Auth is. We'll take a look at the documentations. Then we'll jump into building out our very own application, like the demo that you saw in the beginning, where a user will be able to connect a wallet, sign, authenticate, and verify themselves. And then depending if they own the NFT that we require or not to see the token gated content, we can allow them to view that content, or we can allow them to claim the NFT in order to do so. We'll also be deploying our very own NFT smart contract, which we'll be using to token gate the content too. So with that being said, let's jump on the computer here and let's take a look at our documentation first and take a look at thirdweb's Auth. So I'm on my computer here. I'm in the Auth section here of our documentation. We'll link this down in the description below if you want to check it out. But you can see here, Auth is using EIP or ERC-721, which is the sign-in with Ethereum standard. And what this allows us to do is create a message that we are going to create within our application. We're going to send that message over to the user to sign. And what the user is going to do is sign that message with their private key from their wallet. And then when they sign that message, we'll verify and check that the signature matches the actual wallet that is connected, and that is the wallet of the user. And this is an actual authentication process versus just connecting a wallet. So normally with a Web3 application, you connect a wallet and that allows you to interact and do things on the blockchain through smart contracts. You get to execute transactions, read data, and basically interact with the blockchain. Using Auth, this is an actual authentication method using your wallet essentially to sign in, similar to how you would maybe sign into a Web2 application with like Google or something. You can think of this as the same concept, but instead using a Web3 or blockchain wallet. And what we can do with this as well is we can verify that the wallet that is signing this message is in fact the user. And we can then check things like, do they own a certain amount of NFTs, tokens? We can then verify ownership of certain tokens or assets within their wallet to see if they actually have or can access content that we want them to. So again, over here, you can see we're going to use a few things. If we come here to the server functions, this is what we're going to be using mostly. We're going to have to create our auth here. We're going to generate a payload. This is the message that we are going to be generating for the user to sign. We're then going to verify that payload once it's signed. That is us verifying that the private key that signed the message is in fact the wallet that is connected. And then we can generate a JWT for the client. And then we can also then store that JWT. So if someone comes or refreshes a page or signs back in, we can remember who was signed in here. And you can see here, we can then set the JWT as a cookie. And again, a user can close out the browser, come back in, refresh the page, and still be connected and signed in to our application. We can then authenticate and verify that when a user does come back on, we can verify the JWT that was stored, and we can check, hey, is this the user and should they still be signed in? So that's a quick look at the auth documentations. Again, we'll link this down in the description below if you want to take a deeper dive into it. But with that being said, let's jump on to building out our application here. So I'm going to open up my terminal. We're going to build ourselves a new Next.js project. We're going to run npx thirdweb create app in our terminal here. This is going to give us a starter plate that we can get started with. So I'm just going to name my project here. We'll just call this TW Auth. You can select your framework. So right now we support Next.js, Vite, and React Native. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using Next.js, so we'll hit that. Right, once that's done, we'll change into our project here and open this up in our code editor. In our code editor, the first thing we need to do is go to this .env.example file and set up our client ID, which is our thirdweb API key. In the sources folder, in the app folder, we have a client.ts file that sets up our thirdweb client here, which requires our client ID or API key. So we're going to come back to this .env file. We're going to come back to thirdweb's dashboard here, and we're going to come over to the settings tab. So once you come over to thirdweb.com, you connect the wallet. You can come up here on the dashboard, go to settings, and you're going to see your API keys here. Now, I already have one made, and I'm just going to copy that. We'll link down in the description below a video and tutorial on going more in depth on creating a new project using thirdweb CLI, along with API keys, what they are, and how you can create them. So if you want to check that out, go down in the description below. But I'm just going to copy my API key here, come back here, and paste it in right over here. Now we also need to come here and rename this. I'm just going to change this to .env.local here. And we're going to close that out. And let's open up our terminal here and then run this project here locally. So this should be our thirdweb Next.js template here. We'll open this on 3001 here. So let's take a look. There you go. You have your template here. You have your thirdweb SDK with Next.js. You have a connect wallet button. And we're going to just be modifying this just a bit here for our project. So I'm going to come back to my code editor. Let me just close out this terminal here. And in the source folder, in the app folder, I'm going to head over to the page.tsx file. And we're going to modify some of the templated code here. We're going to keep the header, but we're going to get rid of the thirdweb resources and article card. So I'm just going to get rid of all of that. We'll get rid of the thirdweb resources component here. And I'm also going to get rid of the connect wallet button here. We're going to create another connect wallet button component that we'll use throughout this. And within the header, I'm going to get rid of these p tags at the bottom here, get rid of these span tags within our title, and then we'll just rename this here our token gated app. We'll save that, and we'll get rid of these imports that we're no longer using. So right here, we have our home, we have our header, we have a blank div here, which we're going to add our own connect button component in later. And then our header here, we kind of just removed everything, but we left the image and the title right over here. So coming back here, you can see I have my logo and I have a token gated app here. So what we're going to need to do first, if we take a look back at our documentations here and we scroll down, we're first going to need to, if we look at our server functions for auth, is to create auth here, which we're going to provide it with our client ID and our domain here. And the domain is what pops up in the message here. So if I come back to my demo here, let's just take a look here. Let me just sign out, connect again. When we sign this message, the message that we create is going to have our domain right here. It's going to say your domain wants you to sign with your account. Ethereum account, it's going to show the user's Ethereum account, and your domain is basically what's going to show up here within the message. So we know that, so the user knows where the message is coming from. So I'm just going to reject that really quick. So that is what the domain is. And if we go back here, that's what we're going to be providing it right here. So we're going to create this auth here using thirdweb's auth. So coming back here to my code editor, I'm going to come to my file directory. In my app folder, I'm just going to create a new folder here called utils. And in that utils folder, I'm going to create a new file called thirdwebauth.ts. Right? And in that thirdweb auth, we first need to create a variable here for our private key. So our private key is the private key of the wallet we want to generate this message with. So again, we are generating the message for the user to sign and authenticate themselves with. So we're going to need to provide it with a private key of a wallet that's going to generate that message. So we're just going to store this here in our environment variables. So we'll come back later to do that. But we're going to call this our thirdweb private key. So that is going to be our private key variable. And if there is no private key, then we'll just throw an error here that says our thirdweb private key is required in order to generate that message. And then we're going to export a variable here called our thirdweb auth. And this is going to equal, and we're going to then create auth here. We can import create auth here from thirdwebs/auth. And again, with the create auth, we need to provide it with those two things, the domain. So in this case, we'll store our domain here in our .env as well. This will be a next public thirdweb domain. And then we have our admin account, and our admin account is going to be a private key to account using our, and we're going to import private key to account from thirdweb/wallets. And private key to account, we're going to provide it with our private key. So first our client, so we can get our client from our client.ts file. And then we're going to provide it with our private key, which is going to be our private key that we're going to store up here. So again, we just need to provide that private key again to generate that message for the user to authenticate. And then we're creating our thirdweb auth right over here, also providing it with our domain. So let's set up these environment variables here. So we're going to come back to our .env.local, and we're going to store our thirdweb private key, as well as our next public thirdweb domain. So our domain can be www. Let's just say domain.com. It can be whatever your domain is. Again, this is what is going to show when your user signs the message that is generated for them. And then we need to provide our private key for the wallet that we're using to generate the message. Now I'm going to grab my private key, plug it in here, and then we'll come back to our thirdweb auth.ts file. You can do that the same with your private key as well. Now, for this tutorial and example, storing your private key in an environment variable isn't the safest way to store your private key, and you won't want to store it that way. We'll link some documentations down below on how to securely store your private key using like a secret manager. But for this tutorial and for the sake of time, we're just going to be setting up our private key right here in our environment variable. So I'm going to grab that, save it, and then we'll head back to our thirdweb auth.ts. Right, so I added my private key, and now we have our thirdweb auth set up. So now if we take a look back at our documentations here, we need to now allow our user to authenticate themselves using auth. So we need to be able to generate them the payload or the message. We have them sign it. We'll then verify that payload and then generate them a JWT here, and we can use that within our application. So let's come back over to our code editor here, and in my file directory under the app folder, I'm going to create a new folder here. We're going to call this actions. And in the actions folder, I'm going to create a new file called auth. I'm going to create a new file called auth.ts. And in here, we're going to generate the message, provide the message to be signed, verify the message, and go through all the steps to authenticate our user. So we're going to create a variable here, and then we're going to call this our generate payload. And to generate the payload, we're going to use our thirdweb auth.generate payload, and that's going to generate the payload or the message for our user to sign. Then we are going to allow the user to sign that message, and we're going to then verify the message. So we're going to create a function here called, let's make this an async function, and we're going to call this login. So before a user can, so when a user logs in, again, they're going to have to sign this message here. We're going to get a payload, which is going to be of type verify login payload params. And what we're going to do here is we're going to verify the payload. So we're going to say verified payload, and this is going to equal await, and we're going to use our thirdweb auth, and we're going to verify the payload and provide it the payload that we receive. That verified payload is valid. We're going to create our JWT, and we will await our thirdweb auth dot generate JWT. And we're going to provide it our payload, which is going to be our verified payload.payload. Then we can set our cookies here to our JWT. And that does it for our login. So again, we generate the payload. When our user logs in, they're going to get the message of our payload. They're going to sign it. We're then going to verify that payload. And if it is valid, we'll then create that JWT and then store that JWT here. Then we'll create a function for if a user already is logged in, maybe they're coming back, refreshing their application, coming back to it. We can check to see if the JWT exists within our cookies here. And if it does, then we can reconnect them back to our app. So we're going to create another one here. We'll say async function, and we're going to say is logged in. And what we'll do here is we'll first get the JWT. So we'll say equals cookies dot get, and we'll get to the JWT. And if there is no JWT dot value, then we don't have it, and we're going to have to return false here. But if there is, then we'll create a auth result here, and this is going to equal await our thirdweb auth dot, and we're going to verify the JWT. And we're going to provide it with the JWT of JWT.value. Our auth result is not valid. We will return false. So we want to also make sure that the JWT that we're verifying here is valid. If not, it is false. They have to sign in and re-sign in again. So if there's no JWT value here that we get from our cookies, we return false. They have to sign in again. But if there is a JWT, but we verify it and it's still not valid, then they still have to sign in again. We return false. But if all of this is true, then we return true. And then finally, we're going to create a function here for if a user logs out. So we're going to say log out. So this is if they disconnect their wallet. We're basically going to get our cookies here, and we are going to delete the JWT from it, which will delete the JWT. So that way, if they ever log back in, we'll say, hey, there is no JWT. They have to go back and log in again. So that does it for setting up our auth. Again, we have our function for when a user logs in. We're going to generate them a payload to sign. We'll verify that payload. If it is valid, we'll generate a JWT and store that JWT. If a user is coming back to an application, we'll see if there is a JWT that exists. If there is none, they have to go back to signing in. If there is, we'll verify it, check if it's valid. If it's not valid, we return false. They have to sign in again. But if it is valid, then they can sign back in, and we authenticate them back into the app. And then finally, if someone logs out or disconnects their wallet, we basically delete the JWT from the cookies here. So now we have a way of authenticating our user, allowing them to sign in. Next thing we're going to do is, again, we're creating a token-gated application. So we want to have certain conditions that the wallet or user that is being connected has to meet in order to view certain or specific content. So in this action folder, I'm going to create a new file, and we're going to call this our conditions.ts file. And this is where we're going to create our conditions for seeing if a user has access to view the token gated content or not. So we're going to create a async function here. And this is going to be a function that says has access. So this is checking if a user has access or not to view that token gated content. We are going to take in an address, which is going to be of type string. And what this is going to return is a promise of a Boolean. So we're going to need to know do they have access or do they not have access? So we're going to create a variable here for quantity required. This is going to be our quantity of the token that is required. We're just going to say 1. This does need to be a big int though, so we're going to add the n there. So we're going to require that they own 1 of whatever specified token that we create here. We're going to get our contract. So we're going to create a variable here for our contract. We're going to use the get contract here from thirdweb. And we're going to provide this with our client, which we'll get from our client.ts file. We're going to provide it with our chain here, which we are going to use define chain. And we're going to define the chain that we deploy our contract to. And then we're going to provide it with the address, which is going to be the contract address of our smart contract. Now, we didn't deploy our smart contract yet, so we'll come back in here after we deploy it to add it here and then verify our user. Next, we want to check the balance of the wallet to see if they actually hold the required value up here. So we're going to create a variable called owned balance, and this is going to await, and we're going to use an extension here from thirdweb. Now, extensions are just pre-built functions that we can, execute functions on chain, or we can read data from smart contracts. And this is going to be the balance of extension, which is going to give us the balance of the token of the specified wallet. So we're going to import this here from thirdweb /extensions /ERC-721. That's the type of token that we're going to be verifying, but you can use the balance of for ERC-721, 1155, or 20s. So depending on the token that you're checking, you can import it from there. So balance of here, we're going to provide this with the contract, which is the contract from above. And then we need to provide it with the owner that we're checking the balance for, which is going to be our address that we provide to our function. And then finally, we're going to return if our own balance is greater than or equal to the quantity required, which in this case is 1, then we return true. If it's not, then we return false, and they don't have access. So we'll come back to here to get our contract once we deploy it. But then the next thing we need to do is create our button to actually allow a user to connect a wallet and sign into our application. So I'm going to come in here in my app folder, create a new folder here called components. And we're going to create a new file in there called our login button.tsx. So once we created our components folder and our login button.tsx, we're going to create our connect button UI component with Auth implemented into it. So with just a few extra lines of code, we can implement the Auth functions that we created in this auth.ts file, and we can implement it into our connect button UI component from thirdweb. So we're going to export here our, we'll call it login button. And in here, we're going to be returning, and we're going to return a connect button here from thirdweb. Now we need to provide this with a client, which will be our client from our client.ts file. And at the top here, we'll also make sure that we mark this with use client. Now for our connect button here, all we need to do is add our auth. And in our auth, we can now set things like is logged in. So if they are logged in, we can run our is logged in function. So we're going to say async here. We're going to provide it with our address. And what we'll do is we'll return and await our is logged in function from our auth.ts file. We'll also set our do login. So this is what happens when a user does have to log in. So we'll have a async function here. We are going to get the params, and we're going to await login with the params, which is our payload. And then we have our get login payload, which we are going to get with our address here. And then we are going to then generate payload from our auth as well, providing it with our address. And then finally, we have our do log out, which is going to just run our await our logout function from our auth.ts. So again, setting up auth, we we have to set up our is logged in, do login, get login payload, and do log out. Again, we created these functions here all within our auth.ts. So again, in our login button here, is logged in is calling our is logged in function here, checking to see if there is a JWT or a wallet that is already authenticated that we can verify and sign back into. Do login calls our initial login here. So it calls our login function here, which is going to take our payload params and verify it. And if everything looks good, we generate them a JWT. Get login payload is calling our thirdweb auth generate payload here. And then do logout is simply calling our logout function, which is deleting the JWT from the cookies here. And with that, that creates the connect button with auth all implemented inside of it. So if we come back to our pages here, pages.tsx, we can add our login button here. And once we will add our login button, we'll also add and tag this page with, use client here as well. And then if we take a look at our app, we are importing a component that needs next headers. It's marked with use. Let me take a look here. So come back and let's take a look at our auth.ts file. Up here at the top, we'll have to mark this one with use server. And then come here, let's refresh. So we have our connect button here now. So if we connect, we can connect with a MetaMask button. You'll see that we're prompted with a sign in now. It doesn't just connect to our wallet. When we hit sign in, we are generated our message. This is the payload that we need to sign and verify. You can see here, this is our domain name, wants us to sign with our Ethereum account. So hit sign. And there you go. We're now connected but authenticated through thirdweb's auth. And now we can create a token gated page where a user, and we verified the connected wallet, has the required NFTs in order to gain access. Now that we have the auth set up and we're able to connect a wallet and sign in and authenticate, let's create our NFT smart contract that we need to verify. So coming over to thirdweb's dashboard here, I'm going to come over to the contracts tab and I'm going to deploy a contract. We're going to deploy and scroll down and deploy an open edition ERC-721 contract. I'm going to hit deploy now, and we're just going to call this our NFT. Give it a symbol of NFT. I have a little image here that I'm going to put of a little blob. And again, you can fill out your contract parameters to your liking. If you want to watch a video or tutorial where we go more in depth on deploying ERC-721 smart contracts, we'll link that down in the description below as well. You can check that out. But down here at the bottom, we have network and chains. You can hit this drop down and you can select any EVM chain. We support all EVM compatible blockchains, mainnet, testnets. You just select the network you want to deploy to. Right here, I have base Sepolia testnet selected, and I'm going to hit deploy now. I'll get a message here to confirm and deploy our smart contract. We're going to get another transaction that we need to confirm as well. That's going to set our NFT metadata. Basically, this open edition ERC-721 is a ERC-721 smart contract where all the NFTs share the same metadata. So we're going to have this other transaction here to set that metadata. I'm going to confirm that as well. And then finally, we're going to get a signature request to sign. That is to add our contract to the thirdweb dashboard. And then we can manage and maintain our contract from there. So here we go. We have our signature request here. I'm just going to sign that message. There we go. We have our NFT smart contract. Next thing we need to do is just head over to the NFTs tab here. We're going to set the NFT metadata. I'm just going to call this NFT number 1 and drag in my NFT image. Again, you can create this NFT however you want. I'm just doing something quick and simple here for this tutorial. And we're going to set that NFT metadata. So again, with the open edition, all NFTs minted to this get minted with the same metadata. So I'm going to just confirm that. There we go. Our metadata has been set. And finally, we're going to head over to the claim conditions tab. We're going to add a claim condition here. I'm just going to add a public, leave everything as unlimited. We're going to make this NFT free to claim for this tutorial. But again, you can set your claim conditions and if you want to charge for NFTs and everything, you can set that here. But I'm going to set this, save the phase, confirm the transaction. So confirm that. There you go. Claim is phased. And now our NFT smart contract is set. So I'm going to come here and copy my contract address, head back over to our conditions.ts file. In the address here where we're getting our contract, I'm going to paste in our smart contract address here, and defining the chain, I'm going to define it as our base Sepolia chain, which we can import here. And we can import that from thirdweb/chains and get rid of that and comma instead. So there we go. Now we're getting our contract. We set our chain here to base Sepolia and we provide it with our NFT contract address. So now we're going to check to see, does a user have access to view our token gated content? Now we need to create a page that is actually token gated. Right now our main page here is just for a user to sign in with their wallet. So let's create a token gated page here. We're going to create a new folder in our app folder here, and we're going to call this gated content. And in that gated content, we're going to create a new file and create a page.tsx file. And in this page.tsx file, we're going to create our gated page here. So we're going to export a default async function here. We're going to call this our gated page. And in our gated page, we're going to check to see if a user should be able to view the gated content. So we're going to have to check the JWT. So we're going to get the JWT from our cookies here. We're going to check if there is no JWT.value. We're going to return a component where they have to log in. So we'll just say for now, we'll say must log in. So we're going to return a component where they have to go to the login page if there is no JWT value, because we need them to sign in order to check to see if they're verified. Then we'll verify the JWT if there is one. So we'll say, hey, we'll get our auth result. Again, thirdweb auth. We're going to verify the JWT here. Import thirdweb auth from our utils thirdweb auth file. And then we're going to provide it with the JWT value. So again, we're verifying it. Similar to how we did with the isLoggedIn function that we created for in our auth.ts file. And then we're going to say if the auth result is not valid, again, we're going to show them that they must log in again. So they have to sign in again and verify their wallet. But if there is a JWT, it is valid, and we verified it, then we're going to get the address of the user, which is going to equal our auth result dot parse JWT dot subject or sub. And then we're going to say if there is no address though, then we're just going to throw a error saying no address found. We'll just say no address found. There we go. So if there's no address, we're just going to say, hey, no address is found. And then we're going to check if a user has access to view our token gated content or not. So we're going to say here has access, and we're going to await our has access function and provide it with the address that we got. If the user does not have access, then we'll say here no access. And if the user does have access, then we can show them our token gated content. So let's create the components here for, let's just say they logged out, there's no JWT, there's no proof, nothing to verify them. They have to log back in again. So we'll just create that component that says, hey, you're not logged in, head back to the login screen to log in. So we're going to create that component here. We're going to call this must log in. And in here, we'll just say return. And what this is going to do is return a div. And in this div, let me just scroll down a bit here. We're going to say add some text, and we'll say you are not logged in. And then we're going to create a link back for them to log in, which this is going to just go back to our main page here. And we'll provide this a button that says go to login. I have some Tailwind styling here, so we're going to add a flex column, minimum height, justify everything in the center, give it some padding, and then we have some for the button as well. There we go. And that is just going to add some styling to our button. So this is going to be our must log in component. So we'll switch this here to our must log in component. We'll do the same thing for this one here. Next, we need to create our no access component, or they don't have, basically they're not allowed access because they don't have the required NFT. So we're going to say not allowed. This one is going to return a div again. We'll just provide it some text here saying you do not own the access NFT. And then depending, because they don't own the access NFT, we'll create two different routes for them to go to. They can either go back to the login page here. They can go and claim an NFT, which we're going to say here, we're going to call this page claim NFT. We'll create that right after this. So claim NFT, that's going to be the other option they have. So let's add the same class here to our div. So same styling here. And then we have our button styling as well. There we go. So that's for if they're not allowed. So over here, we're going to say not allowed, not allowed. There we go. Depending if they need to log back in or if they are logged in but do not own the required NFT, we'll bring them to the must login page, or we'll bring them and show them are not allowed. And then finally, we need to create our token gated content page. So I'm just going to create a new file in here. We're just going to call this gated. We're just going to call this gated content.tsx. And this is where we're going to have our token gated content. So we're going to just tag this here with use client, and we're going to export our gated content, and we're going to return here a div, and then we'll just have our login button, and we'll just have some text here that says you have access to the gated content. Now, of course, this is where you can build out your application, provide all your token gated content and everything, but we're not going to build anything out here. We're just going to have some text and everything that says that we do have access. And then we'll just add some styling here to the div and some styling here to the paragraph tag right over here. So we have our gated content. We'll just come back in here and we'll supply this with our gated page and save that. So now we should be able to check to see where we need to route our user to. Do they need to log in? If they're not already, do they have access to the gated content? So we can say they do have access, they don't have access. If they don't have access, we're then going to create a claim page for them. So let's just check here to see if this all works for now. So what we need to do first is get a way to access the gated page. So we're going to come back to our page.tsx file here. We're going to check here. We're going to create a variable called account, and we're going to say use active account here. This is going to get the active account connected to our application, including like the wallet address and everything. And we can say here, so if there is an account, then we should be able to navigate to our gated page here. So we're going to create a div here, just to create some text saying you are logged in. And then we'll create a link here that goes to our gated content. And it's going to say go to gated content. We can then navigate there. I'm just going to give this div some centered text. So we'll come in here. We should see our gated content, or you are logged in, go to gated content. So if we go to our gated content right now, we should see that we don't have access to our NFT because we are logged in, right? We do have a wallet that is signed in. We just don't have the NFT because we haven't minted any of this NFT yet. So we shouldn't be able to access our gated content. So we can either go to our login page or claim that NFT. So if we go to login here, it'll just bring us back. Again, if we try to access it, it says, hey, we don't have that NFT. We can't access that content yet. So now let's create that claim page to claim the NFT in order to gain access. So let's come back here to our file directory. We're going to create a new folder in here in our app folder, and we're going to call this our NFT claim. And then in that NFT claim, we're going to create a new file, which is going to be our page.tsx file. And then we're going to create our claim page here. So we'll just say here, use client. We're going to export our default NFT claim page. And then we're going to return. And in here, we'll have a div. Within that, we'll have another div with a title here that says claim NFT. We'll have some text here that says you can claim the access NFT here. And then we're going to create a button to claim that NFT. Let's also just provide our login button here. And I'm just going to add some styling here to these divs. So let's just come back to our app right here. We'll go to our gated page. We'll see we don't have access. Let's now go to claim the NFT. And oh, I named it wrong here. Let's go here. We'll claim NFT. There we go. Come back here and let's refresh this. There we go. So now we have our claim NFT and then we can get our access NFT here. So there's our connected wallet. Let's just now create a way for our user to claim the NFT. So in here, back in our page.txx file in our claim NFT folder, we're going to create a UI component here. This is going to be called our transaction button. This is a button, a UI component from thirdweb's Connect SDK that allows us to execute transactions to a smart contract. So we're just going to call this button and have it say claim NFT. Then all we need to do here is set the transaction that we're going to be calling. And we can call a extension again from the thirdweb Connect SDK. This extension is called the claim2 extension. And we're going to have to provide it with a few things. We're going to have to provide it with our contract. So we're going to get our contract again, similar to how we got it in our conditions.ts file. We're going to provide it with our client. We're going to provide it with our chain, which is going to be base Sepolia. And then we're going to provide it with our contract address, which I can come back to conditions here and just grab that contract address again, paste that in. Then we're going to specify who we're sending this NFT to. So we can come back up here. We can create a variable here called account again and say use active account to get that wallet address. So if we come here, we can say account.address. And that's how we can get the wallet address. And then we have to provide the quantity that we want to claim, which in this case is going to be 1, but we have to provide it as a big int. So we'll make sure we put n there. Then we need to make sure we import our client. We import define chain and we import base Sepolia as well. And then on here, we can also add on transaction confirm. So this is, we'll say async here. And once we claim the NFT, we'll just say alert and say that the NFT has been claimed. Below that transaction button, we'll just have a link again, a button that goes to the gated page. So once we claim the NFT, we should then be able to access the gated content. So we'll save that. We'll come back to our page here. There you go. We now have the ability to claim the NFT or go to the gated page. So if I try to go to the gated page here, you see we don't have access to it, right? So we'll just go back to the login. We are signed in. Let's just actually disconnect. We'll start completely back from the beginning again. We'll hit connect. We'll connect our MetaMask here. We'll sign that message to sign in. So we'll sign in. We're signed in now. We can go to our gated content. We don't have access, so we need to go and claim the NFT. So now let's claim that NFT and gain access to our token gated content. So hit claim NFT here. We'll get a transaction here to claim the NFT. We just have to pay the gas to claim it. There we go. NFT has been claimed. Now we can go to our token gated content. And there you go. We now should have access to our gated content. So if I were to just log out and disconnect here, you see we get brought to the must log in component that we made, which is just going to navigate us back to our homepage. So we can connect our wallet again. Let's do that one more time. Sign in. And this time when we go to our gated page, we should just gain access right away, not having to go and claim the NFT. So there you go. We can now view our gated content and we have access to viewing all of that content because we do own the NFT. So let's disconnect here. Let's go to our login. Let me switch wallets here really quick. Let's switch to another wallet that doesn't have the NFT. So we'll come back in here. We'll sign in with our MetaMask wallet. We'll hit sign. We go to our gated content this time. You can see we do not own the Access NFT. We'll have to go back here, claim our NFT. We'll hit claim NFT here. And we can just claim the NFT, then go back to the gated content and gain access to it. And there you have it. We built our very own token gated application using thirdweb's Auth. Auth again allows a user to sign in with an Ethereum wallet utilizing ERC-721 or sign in with Ethereum. And we can then verify that user, check to see if they own a specific NFT, which we can then token gate content and have that as a requirement in order to view certain parts of our application, to view certain content. You can token gate those things behind those requirements. And again, those requirements can be anything you want. In this example, we use a very simple requirement of owning a specific NFT, but this can be owning a specific amount of tokens. This can be whatever logic and requirements you want to create. You can token gate content behind that. So again, I hope you folks enjoyed this video. You found some value in it. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on more tutorial videos just like this. If you need any help or support, we'll drop a link down in the description below where you can open up a support ticket, and our support team will be happy to help you out and answer any of the questions you may have. You can also check down in the description below for all the links to resources that we mentioned here in this video. But again, I hope you folks enjoyed this video, and until next time, see ya.